Hey guys, so last week's video was about suffering, and I thought this week's video would be about suffering too. I think it's a really good subject to go into because it's one that most people can relate to. Whether it's suffering, discomfort, unease, discontentment, they all fall under the umbrella of suffering. And dealing with those things bring you the most benefit as a human being because we want to feel better. We want to have a life that feels good in some sort of way, right? So I thought I'd just talk about my experience with suffering, some of my thought processes during the last number of years in which I had some breakthroughs, and hopefully some of this information can help you too. So last week's video was about accepting suffering as a whole, and this week's video is about how you don't want to just be uh, stuck in suffering. What I mean by that is there's a lot of spiritual dogma out there, and it has use, but it also can trap you too. Like I know in Buddhism, there's something that Ken Wilber talked about, in which a lot of Buddhists will just meditate on a cushion forever and hope that all their issues will just dissolve. And in reality, they're not really working with their shadow. They're not working with their belief systems. And if that's the case, they will just develop in one respect, but there'll be aspects of themselves which will be kind of unbeknownst to them that will continue to cause them suffering or other suffering. And I fell into this. Maybe you have or currently are too. I know one spiritual dogma lingo thingy that's out there is just be with yourself. Just be with whatever is. Let it be there. And that's all you have to do. The only problem with that is sometimes you've taken a big stinky shit a few years ago in some part of the corner of your mind, which is a metaphor for a belief system, and you're just letting that stinky shit continue. You're just letting it be there. You're just having to smell it and experience it over and over and over again. When in reality, you should investigate the stinky shit. This may be like going into like psychoanalysis or psychotherapy or introspection, self-inquiry, and just investigating like what is this? Why does it keep happening? What can I do about it? Um, then you can kind of like throw that stinky shit out so that when you have this very centered stance that meditation and letting it be creates, you don't have this stinky shit going on. That's just a belief system that you've just never really taken responsibility for, right? And when you finally do it, you you're like, oh wow, I was just believing that life was inherently negative, and I was just carrying around this chip on my shoulder, or maybe I had a bad breakup, and every kind of relationship past that point was just uncomfortable. It wasn't uncomfortable because the relationships were uncomfortable. It was just being uncomfortable because you were hurt. You didn't resolve that in some sort of way. You continued to perpetuate that belief system in your future relationships, and you suffered there. Another one might be, um, I can't get a job, or I can't make money. I always lose money, and maybe it's because you have bad spending habits, or you have a bad relationship to money in some sort of way. There's just an endless amount of things that we believe that create our future, create our suffering in the moment. And until you can face that, um, you'll continue to suffer. And yes, these are paradoxical to letting it be there, but letting it be there isn't a be all end all either. And that's what I'm trying to point to. Another one is the nature of where you put your focus or attention. See, the interesting thing about your focus, your attention, where you apply it, is it magnifies whatever you put it on. So if you're the type of person that focuses on what's wrong, what's uncomfortable, discomforts in your body, what didn't quite go right, that's going to be the focus that's created. That's what you're going to see more of. That's what you're going to experience more of in your experience, your body, your mind, and you're generally going to share that as an individual because we generally talk about what we focus on. So noticing what you focus on is important because with practice you can realize, oh, instead of focusing on this negative thing, I can focus on what positively happened. And instead of focusing on um, maybe the breakup you had, you can focus on the fact that you have a great job and uh, maybe a great family. This is just gratitude. Um, and the more you practice shifting your focus onto things, the more you have control over your inner experience. I know sometimes people don't like this word control in the spiritual community, but it's really you're using your focus to benefit yourself. I know for myself, I used to be like a perfectionist with like experiencing just peace, just love, just the best kindness that I could give. And any kind of disturbance came up, like a muscle cramp or a certain way of negative thinking, I just instantly focused on that. And I was like, okay, this has to change. And as you can see, my attitude was like just edgy. I had an edgy attitude or an edgy relationship to my experiences that weren't meeting my expectations. And in that, I was creating my experience of edginess. I was also focusing on the the circumstance that was actually kind of edgy or negative or unpleasant to begin with. And that was my life for almost 10 years. Even though I was doing spiritual practice and making kind of like consciousness expanding gains and gaining lots of wisdom, my focus internally was, oh, this isn't quite right yet. I didn't quite make it here yet. Oh, this still hasn't changed. Oh, I'm not maintaining that perspective of love and care and uh, big view that I had for 3 months earlier. Where did it go? And so I was always focused on what was lacking. And guess what? That's what I experienced most of the time. And that's why I was really unhappy. Despite 10 years of spiritual discipline and mastering where I could put my focus and my mind and um, yeah, I was just still fooled by the subtlety of the fact that on some level I was still just ungrateful, still focusing on what was not right yet, what was not attained, what I felt like was possible of me that I wasn't reaching. It was just another form of um, I'm not good enough yet. I haven't done this yet. This isn't perfect yet. Which is like I haven't gotten money that I want yet for my house. These kind of ideas that we think are below us in spiritual communities, like, oh yeah, getting a house and a family and a job and any kind of material gains, they're not going to make you happy. But like, and that might be true to some extent. But what I was doing was just the same thing in a spiritual form. Just a, it's just the same habit of I'm not good enough yet because this spiritual uh, ideal isn't reached yet. I'm not a loving, kind individual 100% of the time. I'm not a heartfelt, loving monk yet. Uh, I still have uh, issues going on in my head that are impure or aren't pleasant and all flowery. I mean, there was just an endless amount of ideas I still had that because I wasn't meeting, I was never good enough. I was never um, up to my expectations. And when we don't meet our own expectations, we generally suffer. And And what's interesting is these are just our expectations. If you're really honest and you look around, often people aren't judging you by your own expectations. It's just you. And that can be another kind of way out of suffering and spiritual wisdom, because we're generally our biggest enemy. I know I'm going all over the place, but these are all the things that in the most recent years, until I faced, none of my spiritual work really did much. It's true. Yeah, until I accepted that I was ungrateful, I was always focusing on the negative. No amount of meditation, spiritual reading, trying to be a good person helped. So with that, I'll hope that you got something out of it. I know it's a little all over the place, but it was just an honest dive down into the reality of suffering as a human being, and that it's really deep. Resolving one's suffering requires a lot of perseverance and effort, and turning over every rock, not sticking to one dogma or book or belief system or style. You have to try everything. You have to be open to everything. You can't let yourself get fooled into believing that you're ever past it. Because the mind is tricky. The mind is really tricky. Or the ego, if you want to call it that. Or bodily trauma still playing itself out through the body and the brain. There's millions of years of perspectives that are negative and created in trauma that are powerful and are creating you in this moment. And you have to have a lot of humility, perseverance, commitment, acceptance that you're going to fail. You're going to fail your own beliefs. You're just going to fail. You're going to try. And you're going to fail. But to not blame yourself, to keep trying. To have hope. To keep going. To keep your chin up. It's funny, these are all very human, stereotypical ways of relating to life that I know I dismissed, but they're true. They keep your spirit alive sometimes when nothing else works, when life is tough. Sometimes you just gotta suck it up, because life is tough sometimes. It's all in the picture. There's no easy way out of this. But at the same time, you gotta realize it's not that bad either. The struggle, there's more to it. There's more behind this struggle than we can realize. There's so much happiness and love and freedom that is in us that we have no idea about. That you won't find unless you keep your head up, you keep looking. You keep a positive try involved. You don't let yourself get broken, despite all the facts that I've just mentioned, the hardness, the tragedies that you can find in any history book, your own life, your family's history. You keep going. You keep a positive spirit. It will help tremendously. Because getting sucked into the victimization and the complaining, it won't help. It just won't help. It's true that it's tough, but mulling over it won't help. And that's maturity. It's a maturity that will carry you pretty far. It'll keep your heart steady, keep you from being swayed by the challenges of life. So, I hope that's helpful. I hope you stuck with it. It's just the honest truth, as far as I've found to this point. And I'm not the only one who has this type of experience or truth to share. So keep looking, keep finding, trying out what works, dismissing what doesn't. Don't look for the magic bullet that's going to be the one time thing that works, and then you can just drop it all and finally lay back and be like, ah, yes, enlightenment, peace, I found it. Ah, that was the magic bullet. The magic bullet's not out there. I haven't found it. I I thought I found it a million times, but it's just I think it's 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 a Bigfoot, it's a Yeti. It doesn't exist. There's no magic bullet that's gonna finally be the thing that snaps you out of the challenges that you feel like you're in, the troubles that life constantly feels like it throws at you. There's no magic bullet out there. There's just you and you. But there's also others out there to support you. So if you don't have that, find a network of people that can help you, support you, not drag you down into the mud of the same old life sucks. Just keep on trucking. All right, I think I've said enough. Hope some of it sunk in. Hope you take it to heart. Take care.